How has lockdown life been for you? Pure hell? Lonely? Boring? An 8-week long, is it time for a G&T yet? Have you taken up baking, joined Grayson Perry's art club, learned a foreign language, had quality time with your nearest and dearest, or wanted to catapult them into the stratosphere? What about work? Are you still having to go in? Or have you joined the great army of PJ workers, sitting in your new home office, aka the bed, coffee on the bedside table, hair tied up in a scrunchie, laptop balanced on your knees? For more formal days, when you may have to zoom into a meeting, hair is combed, you've rooted around for a bra somewhere in the laundry pile, with a nice smart top, bottom half, joggers or PJs, and bare feet with obligatory chipped nail polish and feet screaming for a pedicure. The bed office is a growing trend. Not entirely sure it's a good one. Having your laptop set up by the bed makes it just too damn handy to remember to send or reply to that outstanding email at any time of the day or night. Hardly conducive to a night of romance. Hold fire, darling. Hold that thought right there. Let me reply to this email from my client and I'll be right with you. Can't relax and get all jiggy with those notifications pinging away. Working in my PJs has become an actual thing, partly because I was poorly, so was doing the bare minimum to keep things ticking over. A few hours of administrative work, then back to sleep, cough, sleep, and repeat. And partly because all sense of structure and motivation had left the building, along with my lycra leggings, busy diary, set meal times, food and tea on tap in bed with online meditations, YouTube to listen to, inspirational talks, Netflix for drivel, and I was set up. As I improved, my day began to look like this. Roll out of bed, make a nice coffee, sit either on the sofa and look out into the garden, or sit in the garden and look at the garden. Let several minutes, which became hours, pass, and then turn on the laptop. Do a couple of hours of admin, get irritated by my appalling internet connection and begin to swear a lot, and devise a plan where I could let go of all technology, including phones, TV, as the news and pretty much anything I looked at was starting to annoy the tits off me. Wi-Fi clearly was sent to mess with my mental health, so that had to go. Even the fridge was playing silly buggers and beeping all hours of the day and night. Who knew fridges had buttons on the front that needed fiddling with? For all I know, Elon Musk has his designs on my fridge and other household appliances. I started a Pinterest board on simple living, watching Netflix and Amazon Prime documentaries on living in nature, permaculture, technology-free living, and alternative lifestyles. This insane time was clearly telling me I needed to become a hermit, live on a secluded piece of land, surviving on foraged food, nature, well water, and sunshine. Now, all I had to do was persuade the husband it might be a good idea. Every time the family came into the room, hands over their mouths, gingerly offering me beverages and food, if I was awake, I would moan about the lack of connection to Wi-Fi, making it harder for me to do my job from the new bed office. Or if I was in a poorly slumber, I'd grunt and ask for tea and rich teas to be left by my bed and me to be left alone to die in peace. Or if I was feeling more social, I'd grumble about why no one came in to see me and how lonely I was. Day 10 of lockdown came and I started to feel better. The cough was gone. I could stand up without feeling faint. I had a surge of energy. So up I popped to a house that needed, in my opinion, a deep clean. Cupboards, doors, floors, washing had of course not been done to my pre-COVID standard. So the first few days out of bed, the cleansing of the house took place. Izzy, my middle sproglet, joined me in the frantic cleanup, and within 2 days, after much grumbling, mine, sweating, and endless teas with rich tea biscuits for sustenance, the house was sparkling. Well, for a day or so anyway. Life found a nice rhythm. Leisurely start to the day. Alarms are for losers. Plenty of time for my formal morning meditation practice to resume. On as the practice fell into a sense of timeless bliss and love. All is well in the world. I can hear bird song, no rushing about. I'm totally happy and at peace. Sometimes I continued to meditate in bed on the days when the virus kicked back in. It's like a bad penny popping up just when you thought it had buggered off. Then I'd water the garden in my PJs, answer emails, potter around the house looking for things to clean, tutting at the state of the surfaces. No one cleans up properly. Wipe, wash, dry, then check. What's wrong with people, honestly? Then I'd have a nap. I am recovering from COVID after all, so naps are obligatory, obviously. Lunch, tea and rich teas. Joking. I ate soup, also lots of soup, and green foods, lots of green foods. I started peeing green-coloured wee. Sorry, was that a bit TMI? And then rich teas. I rediscovered my love of the rich tea in lockdown. I prefer a rich tea to any other biscuit. It's honest. It doesn't pretend to be all fancy. It dunks well. And if you want, you can fit a whole one in your mouth and just let it dissolve. Delicious. Then I'd remember to wash and brush my teeth. Got round to that eventually, around 2 or 3 p.m. After all, what's the urgency when there's no one to raise their eyebrows if you're sitting around in your comfies, or wrinkle their nose if your breath smells like an old sewer? Afternoons spent in the garden again. God, I am lucky to have my tiny little courtyard garden. The way I bang on about it, you'd think it was Hyde Hall with borders and water features and walkways. Instead, it's a tiny courtyard with abundant blooms and decorative grasses and a teeny weeny water feature that breaks down at least once a week. But hell's bells, it's our saviour. A delicious sun trap with 2 old apple trees that twist and turn like the old dears they are. Trees and trunks bent and ancient, telling the story of a century of growing and dying, growing and dying. Birds love our little plot, especially since lockdown and the addition of multiple bird feeders. Norm, our ancient, permanently pissed off Scotty dog, who also has arthritis, loves to chase birds away. He barks up a storm each time a blackbird or starling appears. He seems happy for robins and blue tits to make their appearance on the old trees looking for a feast, but blackbirds and incidentally black dogs are definitely the enemy. Then more tea and rich teas. Throughout the day, the girls do workouts in the garden, lifting weights, star jump squats, getting all red and blotchy. They go for runs and eat endless amounts of broccoli and plan on getting the best ever workout bodies. I drink tea, eat rich teas and watch them in admiration. Evening arrives and Mr. G arrives home only to disappear into his study to practice and then post his lockdown Facebook performance. He's a part-time musician out of retirement just for lockdown. He eventually posts his chosen piece. Mostly I have no idea who they are, as I literally knew 3 bands growing up: ABBA, Deacon Blue, and The Beautiful South, none of whom he has been too keen to play. Clearly too challenging for him. 9 p.m. arrives and it's night-night for me. My Kindle broke just before lockdown and it seems an extravagance to buy a new one, so reading is limited to the many books, worthy ones, that I've bought over the years that I never finished, as they were too worthy. I find them wonderful to help me drop off. Then, after a good night's sleep, it starts again. Who knows what day it is? Who cares? The sun's shining. I'm tired and weak, but other than that, I came out of lockdown pretty well. My energy levels are appalling, and most of my motivation is buggered off. But I find that I really enjoy the slow pace of life. After a few weeks, I stopped watching the news, same old story being spat out over and over again. The government just didn't seem to be on it, more reactive than proactive, and that started to irritate me. So I check in every few days to hear their version of what's happening. Other than that, life has found a weird kind of peaceful rhythm. I always speak about slowing down, easing back and seeing less clients, having time to spend at home, to bake bread. I've made 2 loaves in lockdown. They were flipping lovely. They lasted about half an hour. because we ate them. My pre-lockdown fantasy was chilling at home, reading, drawing, gardening, meditating, seeing the family, going for long walks, writing my online courses I never get round to doing as I'm so busy doing face-to-face work, and maybe a nice holiday a few times a year. So lockdown life is actually my fantasy life. I don't think it's my bank balance's fantasy life, but once you stop going out for coffee and lunches or buying crap you don't need, it's surprising how much money you save, how little you need to live on. I come back to my idea of the hermitage, which is still not being received well. We could practically live on nothing, I tell you. Peanuts if we got rid of Sky, Netflix, Amazon Prime and grew our own veg. Every time I suggest this, I can hear from the kids' rooms, we are not getting rid of Sky or Netflix. I will die or move out. Moving out is always an option, guys. Not sure hermitage life is suited to my family. But truly, the anxiety many have spoken of and fear and the sense of isolation haven't really been there for me. Not because I'm some kind of evolved being, more because I think A, I was so ill and still so exhausted, I'm really happy just to poodle along for a while whilst I find my energy again. B, I practice and have practiced for 30 years mindful meditations, and therefore I'm able to stay present, not project, accept what is arriving in the moment and bring compassion to the situation. These skills have been life-changing for me in many situations, and this is no exception. C, I was raised in a cult that believes the end of the world is nigh. Any day, any moment, God and his avenging angels are about to attack and destroy most of the inhabitants of the world. Only the true believers will remain, unharmed, ready to rebuild a world free from fornicators, adulterers, homosexuals, thieves, liars, greedy people, murderers. The list goes on and on. I learned from childhood to prepare for imminent disaster. I have incredible coping skills, as I spent the first 17 years of my life basically being no part of the world being us lot, the unbelievers. I'm pretty set up for isolation. There were no friends outside the faith, no social gatherings other than with those in the faith, no relationships with unbelievers. Don't accumulate wealth, live frugally. Spend your energy on converting the unbelievers and so that they can live forever in a new world post-Armageddon. So all in all, having been well and truly prepared for the destruction of millions at the hand of powerful angels with huge flaming swords, a pandemic doesn't seem that bad. The cult prepared us for all kinds of horrors, torture at the hands of us unbelievers, in a vain attempt to make us leave our faith. The death of our loved ones, again to scare us into never leaving. Starvation, abuse, verbal and physical, isolation from each other and the community. The horrors of war were laid bare for us all as we grew up. The fear of the second death. This means to die with no hope of coming back post-Armageddon. The final war that God will wage on us wicked ones. If we, of God's chosen people, leave the cult, then we will die with no hope of eternal life or resurrection, no hope of salvation, and most likely die a more painful death than we could ever have imagined, and our poor families would have to witness it all. The cult now has their members on standby, grab bags at the ready in case the call comes that someone saw a glimpse of a flaming sword in the sky. Messages will be sent to the true believers via text, a secret location revealed, most likely their kingdom halls, and off they will tootle to hide out until God has done his dirty deed of mass genocide. I did snigger a little bit when I heard this, but I also felt sad that millions of people are living in fear of a God that in my experience isn't vengeful or angry or bent on mass genocide. My experience of God is quite different. A sense of connectedness with all beings, a love of life and nature and our planet, a feeling of being in it all together. God to me is in us all, and even in the midst of this horror, we can reach our own God in the way that brings us comfort best. Comfort best. My mind went straight to rich teas then. But really, for me, God is in my garden, my kids, my husband, my stepkids, my step-grandkids, in my community, and of course, within me. So really, a nasty germ that may kill me sounded pretty crap, but no worse than torture, murder, eternal death at the hands of God's avenging army. I found myself pretty chill about the whole thing, accepting of what is our current reality, knowing it will end. The world might look different, but it won't be Armageddon. It might be very frightening for many of us as our livelihoods suffer and we have to choose a different path or adjust our lifestyle significantly. I have compassion for us all as we go through this, day by day sending love and kindness in word and action as best I can in my PJs from my garden. Absolutely aware how flipping blessed I am and how easy I have it compared to many. So kick back, fall in love with yourself and your loved ones, with the whole damn world, and if you fancy a rich tea or 10, knock yourself out.